Hey there, you ready to really dig in? I mean, like spelunking deep into some fascinating stuff you've brought to the table.
We're going on a deep dive today.
Yeah, a real deep dive. We're going to excavate the thought-provoking nuggets you've given us. No need to sift through mountains of information on your own.
We've got you covered. We'll unearth the gems. We're like your personal intellectual archaeologists.
Exactly. Today's dig site, the Vietnamese concept of duyen, and how it intertwines with that ancient Chinese wisdom, the Kin Duch. You might know it as the I Ching.
Yeah, the I Ching, that's the one.
We're not just talking abstract concepts here, though, right? This deep dive is all about your personal exploration, your own grappling with these ideas. It's like experiencing these concepts in the wild, not just reading about them in a textbook.
It's about your lived experiences, your questions.
Totally. Especially that feeling of connection you felt while working with the Kin Dude, casting and interpreting those hexagrams. That's what really piqued our curiosity.
So that's our mission today, to understand this duyin, this affinity you felt.
Absolutely. And to do that, I think we need to start by unpacking this idea of duyin. It's so much more than just bumping into someone by chance, isn't it? I mean, in Vietnamese spirituality, Tam Lin, it's much deeper than just coincidence or luck.
It really is. Duyin is woven into this tapestry of core principles.
Okay, a tapestry of principles. I like that. So what's the first thread we pull on?
First, there's nan qua, the concept of cause and effect. Your actions, they create ripples, right? And those ripples shape the connections and encounters we experience.
Oh, I see. Like the energy you put out there determines the relationships you attract.
That's a great way to put it. And it's also tied into karma, yipluk.
Karma, yeah, that makes sense. So doing good deeds then attracts positive duyin into your life.
Exactly. And of course, the opposite holds true. Negative actions they can lead to those trickier, more challenging relationships.
Right, right. So it's this web of actions and consequences that influences who we meet, who we connect with.
One of your reflections summed it up beautifully. Theotomlin, duyen hung chedontun, lasutin ko heime men, makom kan lin voinan kwa, yipluk vasukit noi vo hinzio kan goi.
Wow, yeah. That's it. That's the heart of it. Our interactions aren't just isolated events. They're part of this ongoing dance of cause and effect.
And then you have these fascinating ideas of predestined connections, Tien Duyen and Duyin Kip.
Predestined connections. Okay, tell me more about that.
These suggest that some relationships aren't just random encounters, but have roots in past lives. Like a connection was set in motion long before this lifetime.
Past lives. Whoa. So you mean like that feeling when you meet someone and it's like you've known them forever?
Right. Or the opposite. That unexplainable difficulty, that tension in a relationship, it could be echoing something much deeper from a shared history that goes beyond this life.
Wow. I mean, it really makes you think.
Your source material highlighted that. It said, Niel ngui tin zang moi quan haze, zo hai ngui hong chi, la sugrap ge tinke, ma ko te dabak ding tu keep jerk.
It's kind of a mind-blowing concept, right? But it also explains those really intense connections you feel sometimes almost out of the blue.
It does. And it's important to remember that duyen isn't always a smooth ride. You know, not every encounter is meant to be purely joyful.
Yeah, not all duyen brings happiness. So are we just along for the ride? Or can we actually influence the kind of duyen we attract?
Good question. Vietnamese spirituality says we can actively cultivate positive duyen.
Cultivate it so we're not powerless.
Exactly. It's about living virtuously, being kind, and keeping your heart open. You shared this powerful quote. Dum lin không chi la su chou do yen den ma con la kat con lu thì yo yen tốt để có qua lại. Sống thêm sụp đổ người khác, một lòng sẽ tạo ra nhiều duy lành hơn.
It makes sense. If we put positive energy into the world, we attract more positive energy, more positive connections.
Precisely.
Okay, so we've unraveled this concept of duyen. It's about cause and effect, karma, maybe past life connections, and also our own actions. It's complex, but it's kind of beautiful, right?
It's a tapestry, like I said. A rich tapestry.
Now let's turn to that ancient Chinese text, the Kin Duke. I mean, what exactly is it? Because I think some people might just think of it as like a fortune-telling thing.
Yeah, a lot of folks do. But it's so much more than that. It's a philosophy, a way of understanding the universe, and how everything is always changing.
Change, the one constant we can count on. So how does it work? What's the structure of the Kin Duke?
Well, it's built on these 64 hexagrams.
Hexagrams. Okay, I've heard that term before.
Each hexagram is like a symbol. It represents a specific situation or a stage of change.
It's a snapshot of what's happening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And each hexagram is made of 6 lines. They call them how.
6 lines. Got it.
Now, these lines, they can be solid or broken. Solid lines represent yang, the active, assertive energy. Think of it like the sun.
Active, assertive, like the sun. Okay, I'm visualizing that.
Broken lines represent yin, the receptive, yielding energy like the moon.
So it's all about the balance of yin and yang.
Absolutely. And to make it even more interesting, these 6 lines are formed from combinations of 8 trigrams. They're called the Bat Kwai, and they symbolize different aspects of nature and cosmic forces.
So we have 64 unique symbols, all made up of yin and yang energies, and these are derived from 8 fundamental building blocks.
That's a great summary.
Okay, I think I'm following. But how do you actually interpret these hexagrams? What are the key ideas?
Well, there are a few core principles. The first one is the most fundamental, Amdun. It's the idea that these seemingly opposite forces, yin and yang, are actually interconnected and complementary. They need each other.
Like 2 sides of the same coin.
Exactly. One of the texts says it like this. Winiam dung kinduk suya chen. Sian gam bunyo hai wun lap ying bo sung lan nyao. Minyo ten vadun, kung zandong. Mai si vad deo bin doi teo kwelot nai.
It's that dance between day and night, action and rest. They seem opposite, but they create a whole.
Exactly. And that leads us to the second principle. Tud bin duk, the principle of constant change. Nothing stays the same. Everything's always moving, transforming. It's all in flux.
Heraclitus said something similar. No man ever steps in the same river twice.
It's a universal truth. The Kindik says, the chut bin zu kongozi labat bien, van vat blunte doi, soy van teo chugonet.
So it's less about predicting the future and more about understanding this constant flow.
Precisely. And the third principle is Thutyan Kwa causality. If we understand the laws of the universe, we can act in harmony with them. It's about aligning our actions with the natural order of things.
Not about controlling fate, but understanding our place in the grand scheme of things. And I know people use the Kinduk for divination, but are there other ways to engage with it?
Oh, absolutely. Many people use it for Chiêm Kok Song, contemplating life and its complexities. It helps them find wisdom and adapt to change. It's also a cornerstone of Feng Shui Dong Trong Fong Thuy, where it helps create harmonious environments.
So it's a deeply practical philosophy, even though it's so ancient. But let's bring this back to your personal journey with the Kindut. You had this question about your duyen with the text, and it came after casting a specific hexagram.
That's right. The hexagram was Feng Hot Jianan Wind Over Fire, also known as the family.
Interesting. You were asking about your connection, your duyen, with the Kinduk itself. What did the initial reading suggest?
Well, it said you do have an affinity with the Kinduch, but it needs nurturing. Like building a stable and harmonious home, you have to tend to it, cultivate it through study and practice.
It's not just given. You have to put in the effort. And what about the imagery of wind and fire?
Well, they represent intellectual curiosity, a kind of spark and enthusiasm, a good start to your exploration. Like your notes say, Bangka duin veking dik, nyung duin ne hong fain tin yen matan, magkandug boydap kwakwa trin hakai vatengkain.
So there's potential, but it needs to be nurtured. But then you went deeper, right? You looked at the haudung, the moving lines within the hexagram.
Yes, those moving lines are really important. They show where the situation might go, how it might transform. They often point to a new transformed hexagram.
Like a signpost showing possible paths ahead.
Precisely.
And you had a unique way of determining these moving lines.
I did. I used a Hoa Mai coin, which has 2 distinct sides. One side was yang, the other was yin.
And based on how the coin landed, you decide which lines were living and which were deceased.
Exactly. And I had a rule. The living yang lines would transform, switching from solid to broken or vice versa, while the deceased yin lines remained the same.
Interesting. So applying that rule to Feng Ha Jianan, what was the first transformed hexagram?
It became Loi Ha Fong, thunder over fire, also known as abundance.
Thunder and fire, that's intense. What did that new hexagram say about your connection to the Kindiks?
Well, it symbolizes prosperity, growth, and clarity. It's like a sudden flash of understanding, a breakthrough.
The spark became a lightning bolt.
You could say that, but then you considered what would happen if the deceased yin lines transformed instead of the living yang lines.
Flipping the script. So what happened then?
In that case, Fong Ha Jianan transformed into Feng Tusihong, wind over water, or dispersion.
Dispersion. That sounds like a scattering of energy.
In a way, yes. It symbolizes the breaking down of old structures, a shedding of old ways of thinking.
To make way for new perspectives.
Exactly. It's about letting go of what you think you know to gain deeper understanding.
Wow. So both potential transformations offered profound insights, but didn't something unexpected happen here?
Yes. When I was writing down the hexagram from the yin line transformation, I meant to write Feng Tusihon, but instead I wrote Feng Tra Trung For Fu Mer Lake, or Inner Truth.
A slip of the pen. But sometimes those mistakes are meaningful.
This one certainly felt that way. Feng Tri Trung Fu is about sincerity, trustworthiness, a connection to a deeper truth.
Almost like the universe nudged you in a different direction.
Perhaps. And I didn't stop there. I started combining the transformed hexagrams to see what would emerge.
Okay, now we're getting really intricate. So what was the first combination?
Loi Ham Feng, from the yang line transformation combined with the intended Feng Tusihon, resulted in Kan Vitin, heaven over heaven, also called the creative.
Heaven over heaven. That sounds powerful. What does that mean?
It's a huge hexagram, symbolizing new beginnings, self-mastery, immense creative power, and leadership.
Like you're tapping into the source of unlimited potential.
Exactly. And then the second combination, Loi Ha Feng, with the actual recorded Feng Truk Tung Fu, resulted in Tin Feng Ko, heaven over wind, meaning duration or perseverance.
Duration, perseverance. It's about the long haul, the commitment to the journey.
And the final combination, Kan Vi Tin with Tin Feng Ko, brought us to Leo Loi Fuk, earth over thunder, also called return or renewal.
Return and renewal. It feels like coming full circle.
It does. Loi Fuk is about recovering, restoring balance, new beginnings after a period of change.
So from seeking harmony in Feng Ha Jinan, to transformation in Han and Trung Fu, to pure potential in Kan, to steadfastness in Ko, and finally to renewal in Fuk. Your whole exploration with the Kinduk mirrored that process of return and renewal.
It's quite remarkable, isn't it?
It is. Like, it was all meant to unfold this way.
Right.
You even summarized it beautifully in your notes. Việc chưa qua phòng họ diễn hắn và sau đó khám phá ra được người phục có thể cho thấy bản đồng trong một quá trình tìm kiếm sự ổn định và hồi phục bản thân trong những thử thách. Họ có thể là dấu hiệu của một sự chuyển mình quan trọng. Kinh Dịch có thể đang mới gọi bạn đi sâu vào hành trình khám phá bản thân, hiểu rõ hơn về cuộc sống và các mối quan hệ của bạn, đồng thời giúp bạn có thể tái tạo và phát triển trong những giai đoạn khó khăn.
And it all started with that question about your duyen with the kindik.
And it ended with a powerful affirmation of that connection. This whole deep dive is like an incredible testament to the power of personal exploration.
It really is.
So for you listening, the takeaway is clear. Exploring ancient wisdom like the Kindik can be incredibly personal and insightful.
And perhaps your journey is a perfect example of how that feeling of duyen, that affinity for a certain area of knowledge, can be like a call to adventure, a nudge to explore deeper aspects of yourself.
It's like trust those instincts, those pulls towards certain topics or ideas. That Diyen might be leading you somewhere incredible.
Precisely. And as we've seen today, the most profound discoveries often come from those unexpected turns, from venturing off the beaten path.
It's all about embracing the journey.
Exactly. This deep dive into Duyen and the Kindeg feels like just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to explore.
Absolutely. And on that note, we've reached the end of this deep dive. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep your minds open and your curiosity burning bright.
And always follow your Dunyan.